Okay, after seeing the amount of people that struggle with Sun King in the Resto Druid Discord, I've decided to take things into my own hands and show you how to heal Sun King as a Resto, even if you don't get a power infusion or the 22 innovates on yourself. This strategy plays around regrowth, but I'm going to also mention another strategy later on. I'm also assuming you're a Night Fae, so if you are not, who am I kidding, everyone is Night Fae. I'm going to start off with some of the preparation stuff, but if you want to see just the word, I'll put the timestamps in the description. Starting off with talents. Talents are basically the same as what you would normally do in Castle Nafria, with the exception of taking throughout the forest over Tree of Life. Because, to be frank, the 15% increased healing from Tree of Life is far worse than having stronger rejuves / regrowths. That's what the forest provides. Plus, you can't really cast more during Tree of Life, because you are still limited by your global cooldown, and outside of healing Sun King, there's almost zero damage happening to justify going Tree of Life. Soulbinds and Conduits. As far as Soulbinds go, this is a pretty straightforward choice. You always take Nia. Why? It's because of the first row buff that's called Growth Invigoration, which provides a huge mastery after you use your Convoke, and I'm going to talk later on why mastery is such a big deal in this fight. As far as conduits go, you should be more than fine if you use Convoke and Vow Growth conduits. Stats. This boss is the only encounter in Castle Nafria that mixes up our stat weights, because you want to prioritize mastery, then haste, and then verse and crit is roughly equal. Though, keep in mind that item level and intellect is still the biggest part, so if you have to drop a lot of item level / intellect just to get a bit more mastery, don't do it. And the reason why we want to stack mastery is because roughly 60, even 70% of your healing will be done to Sun King, and if you have 5 or even more HOTS going, there's a roughly 6% healing increase per 1% of mastery, which is pretty insane if you put Iron Bark, Guardian Spirit and so on into the equation. Consumables remain almost the same, though keep in mind if you have Unbound Changeling, you want to eat Mastery Food to get a Mastery perk from the trinket, and also I would highly recommend buying and using Intellect Potions on this fight instead, because if you have Feral Affinity, you shouldn't need a single mana potion in this fight, and the amount of throughput an Intellect Potion will help you do is insane. Now, last thing before we go into the actual fight, I would like to talk about trinkets. You want to have 2 trinkets. Obviously, you want to have one unused trinket and one passive trinket. 2 unuses could work, but unuses are generally better on this boss because you want to have them ready for when the boss healing is happening. And I would highly recommend, if you have a good item level, Instructor's Divine Bell to use it, or the device trinket from the other side. And if you are going to use the device trinket, I would highly recommend, if you can get your 2 main stats to be haste and then mastery, so have the most rating on them, it's going to be a huge increase, because how device works, obviously it has some lists, like it can give you mana and stuff, but if you use it properly, it's going to give you one of the 2 main stats. So if you can gear yourself in a way that you have just a bit more mastery than you can have everything else, you can increase your chances of healing insanely high pretty well. But this only applies for the second device usage, because on the first one you are guaranteed to have mastery as your highest stat because of growth invigoration, as said earlier. But also Soul Rating is not a bad choice, but then make sure you also play around it a bit, so the soul reaches you as you need it. But with that being said, let's get into the fight. So, before the fight even starts, there's a few things you want to have ready. First off, you want to have Efflorescence under the boss, and second thing, you want to have Soul of the Forest proc ready, so you don't have to waste any global cooldowns once the fight starts. So you can see me here. I'm also going to include timeline on the screen right now, so you can see what I do, and then I'm also going to talk about it as the fight happens. So you can see me getting my Soul proc ready and putting Effla, Rejuve, Life Bloom, Instant Convoke, Convoke for the Growth Invigoration. Then you pop your cooldowns, Iron Bark, and just spam the boss. Just blast, regrowth, regrowth, regrowth. With all this happening, make sure all your HOTS are ticking. So when you can see me replenish my Vow Growth, and it's basically just spamming regrowth and refreshing HOTS. If your DPS is also fast enough, you don't have to put another Efflorescence down to save a bit of mana. Now, in this phase, I accidentally had Boomkin Infinity, and I wanted to make sure I save most of my mana, and I also pet a lot. So please don't copy this playstyle, it's just for logs. I didn't help with DPS as much as I should have, or else as much as I would have normally if it was a progress boss and not farm anymore. Unless you are already at 100% mana, I wouldn't recommend renewing your efflorescence, but if you are capping mana, feel free to do so, it's basically free, and more healing never hurts. Yeah, this was a little bit awkward because, as I said, I had Boomkin Affinity, and I just didn't want to waste any mana outside of just healing for the logs. Selfish. Now, this is still happening. I'm going to talk about the second healing phase. It's basically the exact same thing. You want to have, usually should Bloodlust when the shield happens, Bloodlust or Time Warp. And just before that, you want to prepare all your HOTS and then Convoke, so you don't waste any time. And if you Convoke during the Bloodlust, you are wasting a bit of time, which I did, sadly. But yeah, the main idea is to just fully prepare and to be ready to just spam regrowth when the Bloodlust happens. I'm also going to use Intellect Potions as soon after my Convoke finishes when the Bloodlust, and also saving my Flourish and Iron Bark for it. You can see above my mana bar that Cloak is in 10 seconds. I'm going to Convoke soon, prepare my Enhanced Rejuve, Convoke, and again same thing, Iron Bark, Flourish, and let's go. I Flourish a bit late to obviously keep my HOTS. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, you almost always want to use Swift Mend, then Nature Swiftness, then Regrowth, if you have all HOTS up, because it does like 200k healing just from one spell, which is like insane. And then, same thing all over again, keep all HOTS up. You can see I accidentally let my Efflaw, Spring Blossoms, drop. And I also got a bit unlucky with Trinkets. But that's basically the fight. I'm going to play it fully, just because why not. And also don't forget to heal up the Essence Fonts, but usually that should be someone else because of how your Mastery works, which I already talked about earlier. And then, same thing as the previous phase, just help DPS the boss. Yeah, just help DPS the boss, there's like really not much happening. If you can, to optimize your Solve the Forest procs, you can also just use it on Valgrowths in this phase, but it's pretty much whatever, doesn't matter that much. Like in ideal case, where you are progressing, you shouldn't need to heal at all, outside of just using your Tranquility, and just sit in cat form all the time, and permanently just pump DPS to kill the boss faster. And that's it, hopefully it helps. I'm going to show at the end how much care I had, like 2.1 million healing on Sun King. But this fight is very simple. The main thing that people get wrong is not using Convoke on stealth, or not understanding the basics behind like using the Convoke or why we use it. It's not for the healing as much. Also, one thing, if you can use Convoke on one of the outer like pedestals, it's going to be a bit better because you can outrange the raid, but it's not needed. As you can see, it's definitely not needed. And I'm going to show a log now, and with that being said, I hope this video helped you, and if you want me to do more boss guides on bosses like these, let me know in the comments. Cheers!